Pardon the interruption, but I'm Frank Isola, and I'm only here because they told me I would get to do the show with Mina Kimes.
I'm Mina Kimes, and I'm here because they told me I'd get to do it with Mike Wilbon.
You know what? I knew you were going to do that to me. I knew you were going to hurt me like that. And we go way back.
Frank, you know I love you because I beat you on Around the Horn every time.
We'll see who wins. We'll see who wins when we get to our next segment. But right now, welcome to PTI. In today's episode, have the Sixers started the process of moving Ben Simmons out of Philadelphia? And does Tom Brady really have anything else to prove? But we begin with Trae Young and his 48-point performance in Game 1 in Milwaukee. The highlight, of course, was that shimmy before draining a three. Young added 11 assists and 7 rebounds for a Hawks team that has now won the road opener for the third time in these playoffs. Mina, would you rather have Trae Young or two-time MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo in this series?
Okay. Trae Young was electric last night. We will talk about that, but holy recency bias, Batman. Giannis Antetokounmpo is still the best two-way player in the NBA, and he was great last night, Frank. 34 points, 12 rebounds, notably went 6 for 8 from the free throw line, so this isn't a Ben Simmons situation. But the problem with him, the problem with the Bucks in this particular game is they aren't built to go 22% from 3 and win because of who Giannis is. They also, by the way, cannot afford to be out-rebounded over and over and over and over at the end of games. I don't think those things are going to happen today. So I'm riding with Giannis, even though I have fallen in love with Trae Young like everyone else.
You know, the rebounding that you talked about, in the final 4 minutes, the Hawks had 4 possessions where they missed a shot, got the offensive rebound. That included the John Collins 3, which made it a 1-point game. Then, of course, Clint Capella, who might be the most underrated player in the NBA. He's been dominant thus far. I'm actually going to say Trae Young for this reason, and I love Giannis, but Trae Young is making everybody better. All we ever hear is all these NBA teams, you have to take steps when it comes to the playoffs. What steps are the Hawks taking? It's the first time out for them, and every game this guy plays well. They have won 6 road playoff games against New York, Philadelphia, and now Milwaukee. His confidence in meaning he gets to anywhere he wants on the court. And the one guy that's supposed to be a defensive liability is the smallest guy on the court, Trae Young. It turns out to be the biggest guy on the court, Brook Lopez. I'm not so sure Milwaukee can play him.
That's a good point, by the way, about Lopez. It's a large reason why they got out-rebounded over and over and over and over. But you used the word confidence, and I think that's what struck me the most watching Trae Young. Frank, this was the conference finals.
I know.
He shimmied. I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that before. The cojones, the audacity, the fearlessness. The dude plays like he has nothing to lose, in part because the Hawks probably feel like they've got nothing to lose in this one.
Yeah, you know what? There's an arrogance about this team, but I actually mean that in a good way, and their confidence is so high. Look at the combinations between Trae Young and John Collins. One, he just caught the ball, turned, flung it at the hoop, dunk. And then how about the one that they've practiced before, but they actually use, like you said, in an Eastern Conference final game on the road where he beats his defender, throws it off the glass, and John Collins dunks it. And here's the thing, too, about the Hawks. They have more skilled players than the Bucks do. They bring Lou Williams off the bench, Lou Wings, and Danilo Gallinari. No offense, but the Bucks are bringing Pat Connaughton. And then in the biggest moment, I love Pat, but he shot an air ball. So there's more talented players. And even when Trae Young doesn't have good games, meaning he still finds a way late to make a play. He got to the basket. Even though he missed, he drew Giannis out, and that was Clint Capella who got the big offensive rebound and put back in the final 30 seconds to give Atlanta the lead for good.
It's all about depth. Who would have thought this would have swung on Dante DiVincenzo getting hurt?
Right.
All right,
You're
speaking
right.
of depth, let's talk about the Clippers, who return home to the Staples Center tonight, which should be a reason for optimism. But Chris Paul is officially available for the Suns after being sidelined by the league's health and safety protocol for Games 1 and 2, which Phoenix won without him. Frank, the Clippers have previously won 2 series in which they lost the first 2 games. Do you see a way for them to get back into this?
You know what? I really don't. And in those other 2 series, remember, they did have a healthy Kawhi Leonard. I keep watching the first 2 games, and I'm thinking, the Utah Jazz must be kicking themselves. They got a chance to play the Clippers. All they had to do, win 2 out of 3 games, and they had home court advantage, and they lost 2 games to the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard. I give L.A. a lot of credit for getting this far. To me, they just don't have it. Devin Booker had 5 field goals and 7 assists in game 2, and still Phoenix won the game. And Paul George has been good in the last playoff series. Those 2 missed free throws and the way that they defended that alley-oop, the valley-oop as they're calling it, to DeAndre Ayton, that is going to haunt them. To me, that was their chance in game 2. Now, Chris Paul is coming back, and the Clippers are going to be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I think he missed those free throws because he was gassed. Because
Maybe.
Without Kawhi, I mean, they've leaned on him so hard, and that's why I feel so bad, because I think Paul George has had a terrific postseason, really repaired his narratives around him to some degree, and Ty Lue's been excellent as well, but what else can he do at this point? Like, I thought he made the right call in game 2, starting Zubats, but if they start Zubats against Chris Paul, CP3 is gonna gobble him up. And then if they go to Batum, they're better offensively, but then DeAndre Ayton is going to dominate them in the paint. There just aren't any good options for LA anymore, and I think it's almost as much about Phoenix as it is about LA, because what we're seeing from the Suns is that they are the most balanced team in the postseason, and it is showing up right now.
Mina, they've won 9 straight playoff games. It's hard to win one game in the playoffs. And I wonder if this all goes back to the bubble last year when they won 8 straight games. It almost served as a mini camp for this team, for Monty Williams and obviously for Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, DeAndre Ayton. Then you bring in Chris Paul. I'll say this about Chris Paul, though. It's funny, right? Everyone used to criticize Chris Paul. He really can't win big. Now here he is. He's not even playing in the games, and it seems like he's getting all the credit, even though he wasn't even in Phoenix. He was back home in L.A. Could we give Monty Williams, Devin Booker, Ayton, and Mikal Bridges just a little bit of credit for what this team did in games 1 and 2, right?
I'll let Mike Wilbon address that when he's back on the show. But yes, I agree.
Yeah, you're 100% right. That's his guy, Chris Paul. And Chris Paul has played well, but listen, Phoenix, you're not winning 9 straight games and now losing 4 of the last 5 games. Phoenix is going to make the NBA Finals. All right, let's move to baseball, where Commissioner Rob Manfred tells The Athletic that the sticky substance crackdown has gone, quote, very well. Really? This even after the dust-up between Joe Girardi and Max Scherzer on Tuesday night. And later, did you see this? Sergio Romo's partial striptease as he was being checked by an umpire. Mina, is Rob Manfred right to be happy with how this is going for baseball?
Of course not, Frank. I mean,
Good
if
answer.
you're using the word belt to talk about baseball and you're referring to guys taking off of their pants instead of hitting the ball, no. Things are not going well, Rob Manfred, which is actually a little complicated because I believe the intention behind this is right. Like,
yes,
we
right.
do want more offense in baseball. We do want pitchers to stop cheating, but obviously this was flawed in execution. They shouldn't have done it mid-season. They should listen to the pitchers and maybe not do it on the field in front of anyone, but that's been Rob Manfred's story. Bad execution, bad communication, and that's why it's become a joke.
Yeah, I get the spirit of what they're trying to do, but Max Scherzer has been one of the best pitchers of his generation. And now you're going to check him once, and then you're going to check him a second time, and a third time. And for a guy like that who's a competitor, and you cannot tell me there aren't guys sitting in that Phillies dugout thinking, you know, and one of them is Harper, Bryce Harper, who's played with him, who knows this guy's a gamer. This is a guy that takes the ball when he's not 100% and goes out there and pitches. To do it to him once, all right, it's gamesmanship. You're doing it 2 and 3 times. Come on, Joe Girardi. To me, you're crossing a bit of a line there. And the idea that they want to generate offense, think about this in baseball. The strikeout rate right now in baseball is 25%. Sandy Koufax, you heard of him, and Nolan Ryan, that was their strikeout ratio. They were at 25%. But the problem is today, everyone wants to hit a home run, so nobody's patient anymore. That's why the strikeouts are way up, and that's why home runs, everything in baseball now is feast or famine, and this is an embarrassment for baseball, what's happening. It really is.
So I think there's 2 winners here. Obviously, the hitters are the winners, and they'll be the winners going forward. The other winner, just to go out into my area, which is football, Roger Goodell, because he should send a gift basket to Rob Manfred, because if Roger Goodell, we call him the meat shield, if that's the case, Rob Manfred is like the meat barricade, because he has taken all of the heat for it, and he's not even the one who's been cheating, Frank.
And he said it's been a success because there haven't been any ejections. Well, here's what's going to happen. There's going to be an ejection, and when a pitcher is ejected, the reliever that comes in to replace him, you could bet your bottom dollar he's going to throw at the next batter. This is what's going to happen. It's too much. You want to do it once. You want to do it early on. It has to be curtailed. But I will say this. The whole thing with Girardi and Max Scherzer, that was pretty comical, though. And Scherzer, you could tell, was not happy about it. He really wasn't.
Touching his hair a lot.
Yeah, he kept it, that's where the sweat was. All right, let's take a break. But coming up is Tom Brady being reasonable when he says he still has something to prove to himself.
And are the Sixers really committed to keeping Ben Simmons?
Come on, is it Wilbon or me? Be honest. We could get him for the next
Frank,
segment. Say
you
it
don't
now.
want me to...
My favorite time of the show, because I'm going to have words with Mina in What's the Word. What do we got first?
Tom Brady is blank when he tells James Corden that he still has something to prove to himself.
Look at Tom Brady making the late night talk scene. It's Jordan-esque, because Tom Brady has nothing to prove to anybody. Just like he won with Bill Belichick, he won without Bill Belichick. This is what Michael Jordan would do. He would invent motivation somehow, some way. Remember that cockamamie story where he wanted you to believe that somehow 4 guys in Utah got on the floor of the most famous athlete in the world to deliver a pizza? Come on, Michael Jordan. No one's believing that. So Tom Brady has to pretend that there are people out there that don't believe that he could win yet another Super Bowl at this age. The only thing he hasn't done in his career was go undefeated, Mina, and he almost did that. It's a Jordan-esque move by the greatest quarterback in history.
Well, now I feel a little credulous because I kind of believe him, Frank, which is my word. Why my word is genuine. No, hear me out. Many people, myself included, doubted whether Tom Brady could continue to play at a high level in his 40s. And I don't blame myself for that because no human being had ever done it. On top of that, why would he be continuing to play now in his mid-40s, having 22-year-old edge rushers screaming at his head when he could be, I don't know, sipping a glass of Merlot on a private plane with Giselle? The guy clearly still has something to prove. The part I don't believe is what he also said to James Corden, which is he doesn't think about whether or not he's the best to ever do it.
Yes, he does.
Of course Tom Brady thinks about that. And in fact, you could argue not only that he's trying to prove something, but that he's also padding his lead, because the more he plays, the more Super Bowls he wins, the harder it's going to be for anyone to catch up with him.
No, you're 100% right. And I think athletes like Tom Brady and LeBron James, they've taken care of their bodies, and they're so much smarter today than they were 10, 15 years ago. So why walk away when you kind of have all this knowledge? You might as well keep playing. All right, what's the next word?
It's blank that Rich Paul is speaking to the 76ers about Ben Simmons' future with the team.
All right, so Rich Paul is the agent for Ben Simmons. He's in Chicago at the pre-draft camp. He sat down with the Sixers. My word is foreshadowing. Why? Because you don't sit down with a team to discuss you're going to be there. He's under contract. There's nothing to discuss except for the fact that he's probably going to be traded. And I'll say this, too. After Game 7, and he had a horrible series, the poor guy, he did meet with the media after the game, just like Doc Rivers did. And when Doc was asked, can Ben Simmons be a championship point guard on this team, I was surprised that Doc Rivers left it out there and said, I don't know how to answer that question. In that moment, I thought that was tough to do to somebody like Ben Simmons. At his lowest moment of his career, he needed Doc Rivers to kind of stand up for him, even though we know it's going to probably lead to him being traded, Mina.
Yeah, I thought it was quite telling, which is why my word is inevitable. I just don't think Ben is going to be a 76er this fall. I don't see how he could be. Now, Sixers sources did tell Woj that they're committed to him in the long term, but what else are they going to say? Yeah, he gone, right? Because they're not trying to sell him at 60% and depress his value further right now when it's the lowest it's ever been. I actually think the most important figure in all of this is not Doc Rivers throwing inadvertent shade or the owners or the GMs. Rather, it's the most important person on the team, Joel Embiid, who also after the game threw a little bit of shade at Ben Simmons. And to me, that was telling. There's no way this guy is coming back because Embiid doesn't want to put up with another series like that.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Right now, the trade value is not very good. But remember something else. As you know, Rich Paul, LeBron James connected. Rich Paul got Anthony Davis to the Lakers. Can you see a scenario where maybe somehow, some way, and it might not be the worst thing for Ben Simmons. I think he could use a change of scenery. I think he'd sign up to play with LeBron in LA, right?
That's such a bad fit. Somewhere Lakers fans are screaming at you.
No,
Frank,
no. Anybody with LeBron is a good fit. He'll make everybody better. All right, that's it. Let's take one last break, but still to come. The Pacers pick a familiar face to be their new head coach.
That's great, but we need to dig deep into major news from my Seattle Kraken.
The Kraken, when do they enter the league? Next year, the year after? What year is that?
Next year. Get Kraken.
They'll never play at the Nassau Coliseum. Too bad.
Impressed by the realization that Messi is a year younger than yours truly. Heartened, though, by the fact that I'm still 2 decades, maybe 3 decades younger than you, Frank. But please, Messi is the greatest, in my opinion, not one of the greatest football players of all the time. I am just hoping Argentina wins so that we don't have to listen to this debate anymore about his greatness, because he truly deserves to be number one.
True story. Mina said to me before the show, Frank, explain to everyone why Messi's never scored a goal in the Euros. She tried to get me. Happy anniversary, Don Nelson. On this day, 23 years ago, the Dallas Mavericks general manager and coach had a draft night for the ages. Nelly acquired the rights to Dirk Nowitzki from the Milwaukee Bucks for Robert Tractor Trailer, and then landed Steve Nash from the Phoenix Suns for Pat Garrity. That's back-to-back home runs, folks. That trio had 4 consecutive 50-win seasons and reached the Western Conference Finals in 2003. The following year, the Mavs owner Mark Cuban, against the wishes of his GM, elected not to re-sign Nash, who would win back-to-back MVPs with the Suns. To this day, Cuban regrets the mistake, while Nelson has said that the Dirk-Nash combination would have won multiple titles for Dallas. Today, as we know, Nash is the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets. Dirk was recently hired as a special advisor to Cuban, and Nelly lives the easy life in Hawaii, where he grows, among other things, flowers, coffee, and of course, cannabis.
You know, it's funny, I was thinking about this and the history that you just described, because I was considering the possibility that if Nash did win with the Nets, it would be his first, of course, as a head coach, having not won as a player. But what a year, what a moment, really, for Nelson himself, considering all of the drama under Mark Cuban, no love lost between those two guys, and also the fact that, marijuana's legal just about everywhere now. So good for you, Nelson. Everything's coming up roses.
And bad haircuts for Dirk and Nash. All
right. So you never want to see a crucial game without a crucial player. I will say it's not totally clear that he was hurt on that initial cross check. It is plausible that he might have incurred the injury later in the... I'm just saying, later in the game.
46 seconds, for crying out loud. He got nailed in the back. Cut the guy some break.
What is clear, what is unequivocal, is that throwing stuff on the ice is stupid. Don't do that, guys. Come on.
All right. No errors today. We're running out of show. Let's go to the big finish. The Pacers hired Rick Carlisle as their new head coach. This makes sense to you?
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. He's good with veteran players. I think he'll be great for the roster that they do have with Turner and Sabonis. Home run. So, Frank, the Celtics are reportedly close to hiring Ime Udoka as their new head coach. What do you think?
I covered Ime when he played for the Knicks, just like Monty Williams. They both came through the Greg Popovich coaching tree. Ime coached on the World Cup team. He coached Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum. Good hire. The Seattle Kraken, something near and dear to your heart, hired Dave Haxtell to be their first head coach. Are you happy about that?
Mixed feelings on this particular hire. It's a bit of a retread for a team that's supposed to be fresh and new. That said, retreads have had success in the NHL, so give them the benefit of the doubt. Frank, the Women's PGA Championship teed off today. Any early thoughts?
Oh, I think it's going to be Lexi Thompson, who 3 weeks ago had a rough go. All right, we're running out of time. Thanks for watching. I'm Frank Isola.
And I'm Mina Kimes. Please subscribe to my podcast, The Mina Kimes Show, featuring Lenny.
How about that for self-promotion? How did you get away with that? Wilbon back tomorrow. You get your wish.
My writer.